Welcome back, everybody, to Behind the ToolBelt episode 209. We will be discussing our wins, our losses, our lessons learned, along with our next year's goals. Stay tuned.
TC Backer. Roofing, siding, windows, gutter, solar. Roofing, siding, windows, gutter, solar. TC Backer, TC Backer.
Is your lead flow down? Whether you're a company owner, office staff, salesperson, or installer, you're a roofing rock star. We help you get more leads with custom SEO, Google Ads, and a pro website.
TC Backer.
Welcome back, everybody, to episode 209. Today we have a special guest, John Stauffer of Behind the ToolBelt and TC Backer. I know you do a lot for us too, so I guess, yeah.
What do you mean by special?
Well, you're very special. You know that in many different ways, especially professionally. But yeah, John. So John is now what you're doing. We're gonna give you a title here, real quick, because most people I think that watch this show that work with us tend to find out like what their new job or task are going to be by watching, and that's why they tune in each week. So I think we're going to call you director. We're going to start with the big D, director of sales, training, operations.
Whoa.
And something else.
I love it.
Does that work for you?
It's perfect.
Okay, good.
Is this also where the guests find out what their next
Question might be?
career move is going to be?
Yes.
I love that too.
Yeah. Career move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a shuffle.
It is a shuffle. But I was super excited today to bring you on the show. And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on the show is because obviously we've worked together for quite some time now. And I would say, especially over the past 3 years, I've watched you exponentially grow, not just personally, but professionally as well, and have worked on yourself to become a better human being, a better father, a better husband, a better coworker, and especially a better leader. So I thought it would be kind of cool to listen, and ask you some questions about maybe how you did that. Some things that somebody might be able to take away from listening to how you've achieved as much as you have in such a short period of time, because really 3 years. How long have you worked here?
2 years.
2 years. And how long?
On January 3rd, it'll be 2.
Okay. January 3rd will be 2 years. It feels like a lot longer. How long have we worked together?
Probably 6, 7 years.
6, 7 years at
I
least.
think.
But we've known each
Maybe
other
8.
a lot longer than that.
Yeah.
How far back does that go?
Well, let's go. 2009, 8 ish.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a minute. It's been a minute.
When
So,
you were a guest at the Executive Referral Network.
yeah,
That's where I first met you.
that was cool. Yeah. Yeah. And then you said I attended some Chandler.
Yes, you did attend some Sandler training. You were a guest of Jack Lair.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I forgot about Jack. Jack, we should get Jack on the show sometime. So, Jack, if you're listening, you're next. You're the next contestant.
Have you seen what he's doing?
Oh, yeah. He's doing a lot.
Uh,
He has a podcast as well.
oh, no. I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's called something Lair. Jet.
Jack's Lair?
Something.
That'd be funny.
Yeah. Something like that. But anyhow, let's dive into this. So I broke out some questions here for you, and I actually jotted them down and didn't share them with you intentionally because I really want you to think about some of these questions, which I know some of them you should be able to fire right off, but they're really just general questions. And the first one's, what were the highlights of this past year for you personally, professionally, and both?
Wow.
Some of the
Personally,
highlights.
the highlight,
Yeah.
I'd say the first thing that came to my mind was a reflection of our conversation we had about a week ago. I was thinking of the Roach Motel during the Eagles Super Bowl. Just came to my eye. I was like, wow, I got to spend more fun with Tyrus than anybody else gets to have. Where we had a faux pas at a hotel and had to keep driving to get to the next one. I think we were going to, wasn't RoofCon, but something similar.
Yeah, one of them.
Yeah, one of them. That was a personal highlight.
Would that have been roofing process? Were we on our way to Orlando? Because we were driving.
Yeah.
And usually we drive East Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'd have been roofing process this time last year.
Yeah.
Actually, where we stopped at one place, said hell no, and then went to another place and stayed in the same room together. And that was definitely a highlight of the trip.
Yeah.
At least.
Right.
So just those of you that know or don't know, John does not like to sleep with the TV on. And I like to sleep with the TV on. I have to have that noise, and no sooner you go to turn it off, I wake up for whatever reason. Like I sleep with the TV on, but as soon as you turn it off, I wake up. So I woke up several times with John lurking over me because I had hidden the remote.
Yeah.
So he couldn't.
Yeah, you did.
He couldn't figure out how to turn the TV off. And then I think I yelled at him maybe once or twice. I tend to do that in my sleep.
No, you were very nurturing when you said, "I'll get that in 7 minutes."
Did you like how precise I was?
It took me. I was like, I can deal with 7 minutes. Then 48 minutes later,
Yeah.
I had to find the remote again to try and turn it off.
Yeah.
Couldn't find it.
Yeah.
So I went up on the TV, trying to find the button on the TV.
Yeah. And that woke me up too.
And then you woke up and you just went click.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think I had the shits you waking me up.
I think that was the case.
I did.
Yeah.
That was definitely a highlight. Now, what was the highlight of the highlight?
I think that was it.
Really?
Getting to spend a night in the room with you. Yeah.
Okay. Over the entire course of the year. I'm assuming that's professionally?
Well, no, that was a personal goal.
A personal goal.
Yeah. Wanted to stay in a hotel room with you.
Oh.
And there it went.
Yes. And that will never happen again.
I know we both, did you see my strategy though?
No. What was your...
What came of it? You said we will never sleep in the same room together.
I made you buy your own hotel rooms after that, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, no, I volunteered.
Great strategy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyhow,
Let's get on to something more.
The highlights. I mean, I've had numerous highlights, and you were included in a lot of that. And I would say, and Vic and Ippy and Abby could probably agree with me. Our highlight of 2023 and some of 2022 was all the traveling that we did.
Yeah.
And mine started pre 2023. It started in 22. We did a little bit of traveling with Jen Silver and some other I'm trying to think of some of the other events that we. Oh man, Paul Reed and Eric O had one in Denver, Colorado, that Joe Salowitz assisted me with Behind the Tool Belt there. That was pretty wild. We did several other stops too, and then I think Door to Door Con was like our first. I don't know if that was in December or was that in January. But I think that at that moment, I realized we were like, okay, we're going all in on this. And then our equipment never showed up on the first one that I thought we were going to go all in on. But we did bring flight cameras and a backdrop and stuff from traveling with Jen a little bit there with her little stuff that she did. And not little stuff. She actually, it was pretty good, pretty cool stuff actually. But anyhow, that all of that behind the tool belt traveling and stuff, there was a lot learned there. A lot of lessons learned, a lot of wins. We stacked a lot of wins. It was very tiring. This year, I think we're going to be a little more strategic on the events that we're going to attend, and because we like to go all in, either all or nothing. So, Beyond the Tool Belt was big highlight. A lot of growth with Behind the Tool Belt, and I could go on and on and on. I was going to ask you next, could you share any specific moments or experiences that stand out as a significant learning opportunity for you?
I would say RoofCon was a boatload of eye-opening leadership learning. Probably my favorite part was when you did your breakout, watching you pace back and forth the stage and tell your story again.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you could tell that same story 100 times. I'd probably get something new out of it every time you say it. So,
Thank you. What did you learn from it, or anything from RoofCon? It doesn't have to be something that I did.
Yeah, I don't know if I learned anything. Just that watching you command an audience the way you did, the confidence, the message, just it's pretty inspiring.
Thank you.
It's kind of like that one sales meeting where Skylar turned to me afterwards and he goes, "Holy crap, he's pretty freaking charismatic, inspiring." I was like, "Well, get used to it."
Yeah, that's cool.
I love that about you.
Thank you.
I don't know. Every time we go on a trip, or even hang around each other, just I pick up stuff from you recommending I ought to listen to. John Maxwell's Leadership 101 or whatever book you happen to be reading yourself.
Yeah.
I try to glean something from that, so.
Yeah. Okay. So through reading these books and what has been probably one of the biggest nuggets that you picked up from reading these?
I would say putting others first above yourself, which that's a pretty big challenge for me, because I have a history of being a kind of a selfish guy, self-centered, what have you. And, although my journey for more selflessness started with like the Sandler training I took a decade and a half ago, it's kind of like super reinforcement from being around what you profess and guide me with. So
yeah,
you mentioned how I've grown in leadership, etc.
Maybe you're
I'm
at
not
that.
sure I'm seeing it myself.
Yeah,
but,
I was just getting ready to say that. Like a lot of times we don't see the growth ourselves right away, but others can see that in them. And you may be at that stage right now, but I'm sure if you thought about it hard enough or long enough, and if I would have prepared you for these questions, but one of the reasons why we did is because I this morning when I went in, I saw Vic, he had things all set up and it was all pretty and stuff like that. And I knew I was getting ready to drop a bomb on him. And I was being kind of cute about it, but we test each other, whether you know it or not, where it's like, okay, we're preparing ourselves for adversity and putting ourselves continuously in uncomfortable situations. So, and I explained this to Hunter when we were down at Hunter's, I don't know, a few months ago. Ken was there, Hunter was there, Diego was there. There was a whole room full. Oh, Steven Spence was there. And they're all like, well, what are we going to talk about? And they wanted like this script or bullet points or something like that or whatever. And I looked at Steve. I said, Steve, you're going to be the host tonight. He's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, yes, you are. You're going to be the host tonight. And he's like, why would you do that? It's because those guys are the the sum of the five that what is it? You're the sum of the five that you surround yourself with. Well, we push each other whether we know it or not. So anyhow, long story short, I knew it was going to piss him off, but I knew he could do it. He had to tear all the equipment down and move it into the larger room because I was like, what's John going to do? Is he going to just zoom in? And he was like, oh shit. But the other word, the F word, I am trying to clean this up. I don't know if he actually said it or I read his mind. I think I felt that. Oh, blank, blank. And so I walked away. I went up and I went into your office like, hey, are you ready at 12 o'clock? And you're like, for what? And I was like, well, you're going live on Behind the ToolBelt. You want a list of questions? You're like, yeah. And I was like, no. So one, I knew you had that training because you had said something to me about it, I think last week, the sales training that you presented today to the team. So I knew you had that. I knew you were going to come live today. So that was me trying to push you outside your comfort zone and coming onto the show. And sometimes I think a lot of people think that I'm being a dick, but really what it is, if you really think about it, if anyone questions somebody who doesn't necessarily co-sign their shit or push them outside their comfort zone, like those aren't your friends. Like people that co-sign your shit all the time, like, oh, as long as you're happy, friend, really, truly, I think don't really love you.
You mean like just I accept you the way you are. Keep being mediocre.
Yeah, as long as you're happy. I don't know how. Have you heard people say that to other people? Like, as long as he's happy.
Yeah.
Well, they'll love you to death that way.
My wife set me straight when we first got together. She said, this is no unconditional love scenario where I love you no matter what you do. I have expectations of you, and you better meet them.
There you go.
She set me on.
Yeah.
Right from the start.
Yeah.
It's the best thing that's ever happened.
Absolutely. And if we're not holding each other accountable or raising the bar or trying to level each other up, but meanwhile, we also have to make sure that we can cash those checks that our ass wrote too. So you said about, reading books and stuff like that. I actually read a book twice over the past 3 or 4 days. And I do that and I may end up reading it again.
Which one?
It's called The Energy Bus by John Gordon. Awesome. Phenomenal. Talks about a bus, energy bus. And it talks about being a CEO and creating other CEOs, which is kind of cool because I love listening to a book and it's kind of, it when you listen to it, some I'm like, oh shit, man, I've never heard of that. I really like it. I'm going to start implementing that. And then other books that you listen to, it's kind of like, oh shit, we do kind of do that, but we weren't super intentional about it. But now I can be because it actually is telling me how to be more intentional or things that I've left out and didn't realize I was leaving them out because you don't know what you don't know until you hear, listen, or learn it. And a CEO is a chief energy officer. So what we've have tried to do is create other chief energy officers, right? And most people have 2 dogs in them. They have a negative dog that they tend to feed, or they have a positive dog in them that they tend to feed. And it talks about feeding that positive dog, right? Like not staying stuck in the problem, but rather find the positive in something or go straight to the solution. Doesn't matter who did it or how it happened necessarily. Yep, you got 5 minutes to talk about that because obviously you need to know what happened. But after that, what's the solution, right? And it doesn't necessarily talk about that, but it elaborated more about, feeding the positive dog. And it's really good. Chris Markey turned me on to it, and he's got a couple other books too.
Nice.
That talk about, the bus and you talked about enthusiasm, right? Well, enthusiasm gets people on the bus, right? And we've done that. I think we've been able to attract good top talent, high performing, next level, wanting to continuous to learn kind of people, right? But the hard part is retaining the people. And how do you retain the people? And you do that through love, right? And that's what I mean by like, yeah, we do that, but like, how do you do that? right? And it's like, and I started reflecting on how do we do that around here, and it touched on some other facets of things that I never really thought of before of expressing love. And it's not about hugs and kisses and patting each other on the ass. It's has a lot to do with accountability, setting expectations, and you're only as good as what you tolerate as far as leadership goes, kind of stuff like that. So it's a really good book. I encourage anybody out there that's trying to and this is what's cool about it too. It also applies to your personal life as well too, like being at home, being present, being emotionally present at home with a positive attitude, where people want to be around me and they want to feel that love. Because when it gets right down to it, most people, that's just that's all we want as human beings, is we want love, right? and going in down another rabbit hole in the Gary Chapman, he teaches you how to read people's love languages. So it was a good book. I needed it at the time. That's why I read it. I'm actually on the third time reading it right now. It's a short book. Um, Very easy read, very easily retainable. Again, I highly recommend John Gordon, The Energy Bus. So Chris Markey, if you're out there listening, big shout out to you and his son who turned him on to that book. So
Yep. I got Audible credits. I'm going.
there you go. There you
Yeah,
go.
man.
There you go. So speaking of challenges and obstacles, what challenges or obstacles, um, have you faced this year, not next year, but this year? And how did you overcome them? And these questions are personal and professional questions. So you don't have to think just professionally. If you feel like being
Yeah.
vulnerable, tell us a little bit about your personal obstacles.
Well, I did think professionally right off the bat, where just a relationship here in the within the team, where I felt as though I was tolerating mediocrity,
Hmm.
and it took me a little while to get on with expressing my thoughts to an individual who ultimately decided this wasn't for them. So um, I just realized that was a challenging part of my psyche. Was okay. Try to lead by example, or do the best I can at what I do to show, like, hey, I'm in it. And that just didn't seem to be enough to overflow into my teammates. So
Yeah. Do you find sometimes that situations or individuals dampen that creative runway at times? And
I think so. I try to remind myself to be fully accountable for myself. And I believe it's as a result of my settling or tolerating, and
Mhm.
settlement to tolerate mediocrity. That was like a direct effect on myself.
Mhm.
I can't say, well, it's their fault that creativity's a little low this week or this month or whatever.
Yeah.
That originally it stemmed from me not expressing, hey, let's talk about why we're not engaged here.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm. No, and that's a very good point, especially when it comes to leadership. It sounds like, and we've had discussions on this before too. And I think a lot of people are always trying to find that scapegoat or push the blame on something or someone else. And the one thing that I've noticed about you, John, especially over the past 2 years, is that exponential growth of, going back to, how you said that you were selfish. And I never looked at you or thought that you were ever a selfish or self-centered person. But I think naturally as a human being, I think we're all born a little selfish, and self-centered. But when it comes to leadership and what it is and why we're placed here and put on earth is to serve others. And I think a lot of that's probably the differentiator of one differentiator of the difference between good leadership and great leadership is that the more that you can put yourself to the side, and there's two parts to this, because you have to take care of yourself in order to take care of other people. But what are you doing to take care of yourself so you can help push people to the next level, right? So let's not take this out of context. But when it comes to leadership, of giving credit to others, especially when credit's due. But the most painful part is sometimes, at least for me, and this is going back into selfish and self-centeredness, probably, is giving credit when credit's not so due, right? Um, you know, and then educating people and being patient and tolerant with them, and then watching them grow, getting more joy. It's almost like Christmas morning. When I was a kid, it was like my favorite thing to do was tear the presents open. And, but today it's the exact opposite of that, right? Like I get more joy out of it, and the family's bitching at me because they're all done opening presents and I still have a stack of presents next to my chair. It's because I've been watching everyone else, open their presents, and we got to watch Sky. Not that Skylar didn't open presents last year, but this year was just an amazing year to watch her. And then going back into how we as human beings are selfish, she was like, "That's all." You know what I mean? Which is very cute.
Natural.
Yeah, cute and but natural. But as human beings. But anyhow, John, I've watched you put yourself last many times. You have definitely been a ride or die. And speaking of that particular weekend excursion that we had to stay in the same hotel room, which will never fucking happen again, by the way, if I didn't mention that already.
That's a good footnote.
Your team, the Philadelphia Eagles, were in the Super Bowl. So it was either stay home, watch the Super Bowl, or drive to Orlando, Florida, with Ty busting my balls the entire time to go to Roofing Process last year. So, and that was probably a last minute 12-hour notice, maybe like, "Hey, guess what? You're going to Orlando with us," type of situation. But again, that put you and your family, your actual family, on the back burner. Was like, "Hey, yes, we're going to go down here and I'm going to expand my mind so then I can come back home and teach what I've been taught." You know what I mean? And that
Yep.
just goes to show, and that's one of many things that you've done that I've watched you do over the course of the past 24 months, but it seems like a lot longer than that. But anyhow, what are some other obstacles?
I don't know. I was thinking of the giving credit when credit's due, and then giving credit when it's not due. I probably would struggle with that. I recall being sort of called out by two little league ladies sitting behind me when my son Ty, he hit a double, and he ran off past second base and got tug out. And they were like all going, "Nice try, Ty. Nice try." I was like, "What are you talking about?" I said it was a nice fail. He didn't try. It was just totally poor base running and little leaguing, if you will. And my son appreciates when I'm honest with him, and we have good candor that way.
Right.
So I thought, well, that's I'd have a hard time saying, "Yeah, nice try on that one." So it just reminded me of that when you said give credit when it's not due. I thought, I might be guilty here or something.
Yeah. Well, and I think you have to pick and choose on that too, right? Because there was a lesson to be learned there. So that was one of those moments where you had mentioned candor, where, you have to learn how to navigate kind candor.
Well, I'll rescue myself. I think I encouraged him to do better the next time.
Yeah.
I didn't give him credit. I said, here's your lesson.
Did he ever do it again?
No.
Yeah. So win-win.
Don't know if he ever hit another double. I don't know.
Yeah.
Can't remember.
Well, and I think that's a learning experience both for the parent and the child, right? If you may have handled it poorly, lesson learned.
No, I still think I was right on.
Okay. Well, then maybe it wasn't, but I'm sure you can think of other times where you've handled situations very badly.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And hopefully you can identify them a lot quicker today than you could maybe back then when Ty was in Little League.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about something like that. Let's talk about a time where you have failed, and then, but another time where you have succeeded.
Wow. It's hard to go through the library.
How about most recently?
Most recent, a failure and a recovery.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'd probably be more with my wife than with my son, as far as
Yeah, it could
how
be
often
anything.
I
It could be
fail to
yeah,
do.
it could be professionally
to
or
do stuff.
personally. It all at the end of the day
Yeah.
blends together.
I usually, if I find myself slacking or doing, not being attentive or engaged,
Hmm.
I'll end up instead of calling myself out on it so much,
Hmm.
I'll just call her out on it and go, "What the heck did I do that's pissing you off?" You know. So we get to talking about it, and somehow I get to the answer, and then I make the corrective choices and behaviors, actions. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay. Cool. What's something that has gone on for a long time that you were oblivious to, and then like a light bulb went off? Like or it could have been a train of thinking. And I'm going to give you an example. How about that?
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
when I
Thanks for
was
the
sitting
help.
here listening to you talk, I thought, so for many years, and again, this could be taken out of context as well, but so for many years, I worked hard, 12, 16-hour days, and thought that was the right thing to do. I thought, missing first days of school, getting them on the bus, um, not being emotionally available, emotionally present, answering the phone at all hours of the night and day. And I thought that was the right thing to do. And I know a lot of people probably listening thinking, oh, why would you do something like that? Um, there was a lot of things that used to go through my mind. I thought, I need to make up for lost time. I'm providing for my family. At least he's got the nicest shoes. Whatever I was telling myself at the time. Um, I just thought the harder I worked, the nicer things that the family could have, the better life that they would have. And that's just kind of the things that um I thought, the harder I worked, the better our life would be, right? And it's funny how as time goes on, and I thought that for the longest time, and still do, and I'm still guilty of it, and it's something I'm still working on, right? It's a skill to be emotionally present and emotionally available. And what I mean by available is if Jana called me right now, would I answer the phone? Maybe not now is a good example of that, but I'm just saying, like, throughout the course of the day, right? I would actually not red button her, but I wouldn't be like, hey, hold on, my wife's calling me. Like, I've heard people say that in the past. And I think to myself, and not recently, but in the past, years ago, I'd be on the phone with somebody and they're like, hey, my wife's calling me. I was like, and I'd think to myself, really? Really? Like, you're going to put me on hold? Like, you just can't call her back. Well, the difference is that he's emotionally available for his wife. She could have been having a bad day. She needs help. Can you pick the kids up after work? Blah, 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 blah. Well, Jana wouldn't have asked me to pick the kids up or anything like that, because she knew, and she thought, and this is what's crazy about it, is that I actually trained my family into thinking the same way that I was thinking. And Jana is still to this day is my ride or die, and still does that for me and allows me to do what we have to do for the family. But now it's my job to maybe like retrain them and or train myself in the way that I think. So it's like, what I know, that when I'm home, I need to be emotionally available and emotionally present in the time. I need to be where my feet are at the time. And again, this is something that goes against every grain, every fiber of my being, because I'm so fixated on work, because I don't want to let people down. Whether it's my coworkers, whether it's a client, whether it's a homeowner, doesn't matter. Don't want to let them down, because then I feel like I'm letting my family down. If I miss that call, I didn't get that lead, we didn't make that sale, we didn't complete the job. Do you know what I mean? Like, I had my priorities screwed up for so long. And at the end of the day, what makes me the richest man is that I was with my entire family this past weekend, right? That's what made me the most wealthiest man, and what made me feel so rejuvenated this morning to want to come on this podcast and probably talk about that. And I'm not ashamed to talk about me having my priorities mixed up, because I don't think we would really, and this is where I don't want anybody to take this out of context, because I think some of the problem is, especially with early entrepreneurship, is that people don't really want to put in the work. They don't want to do whatever it takes to get to a certain spot. But I think at some point in time, whether it be 5 or 10 years into it, you need to realize that you need to let go. and surround yourself with people that are smarter than you in those areas anyhow, and then come to realize that you're just mediocre at everything because now you got yourself spread so thin and you can't excel. And we've talked about that before. And we become the bottlenecks at home, and we become the bottleneck here at work, because shouldn't your family be growing as well, mentally, spiritually, physically? You know what I mean? Like, if I'm doing things for myself, my son should also be working out. My significant other should also be working out. If I'm growing, they should be growing. Maybe they're not necessarily working out or doing those things, but because my thinking is healthier, in turn, their thinking becomes maybe healthier. But then I've also noticed too that they don't change. It's my thinking that's changed. And all of a sudden I think that, they're doing things differently, but they're not. But it's the way that my perception of things
Right.
is what it is.
Yeah.
For sure. I was going down a rabbit hole that I shouldn't have probably went down for a second, because nothing's changed at home. What's changed is the 6 inch between my ears.
Well, and if there was sacrifice in the past on their behalf of, missing out on Tyra's time.
Yeah.
Much love and appreciation and thanks for their indulgence in that, because I wouldn't be here sitting with you today.
It's true.
If it wasn't for them.
No doubt. No doubt. Jana and Rocket and
it'd be
Mackenzie.
funny if she called right now. That'd be, if you're listening, Jana.
I'd probably answer.
Yeah.
But no, that's the thing. It's like our children. So anyhow, that was a question. Have you experienced anything for like over a decade or two that you were doing, but now today you're thinking, your mindset's different today?
I would say probably keeping an eye on what I put into my body. I'd say I've been doing for a decade or so. It's different now.
It could have been a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
just
diet
that.
and
I would just
exercise
say
and
that-
health
Yeah.
is something that you didn't care about, or you thought maybe if I ate these, this was good for me, but have come to discover that eating popsicles, laying in bed before you go to sleep is not conducive to my health.
Yeah. Yeah. I've kind of gone through cyclical through my life of, well, I gained a lot of weight and I kind of lost a lot of weight, and I kind of gained a lot of weight and lost it, just, I don't know, something, about a year and a half ago. I think it came from some of the things we did at RoofCon or somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
just in watching other people be more healthy with themselves and more intentional on what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I went on that, a year-long skipping of bread and added sugars and dairy, whatever else. That little plan I had, the bamboo porridge
Mm-hmm.
I'd make for lunch every day.
Yeah. By the way, you look amazing,
Well,
which I know you know
it's a
that.
little better.
Yeah.
I'd say I suffered over the Christmas holidays, Thanksgiving through Christmas, with a couple cookies.
Mhm.
And, it's kind of like, all right, I can afford some because I'm doing so good.
Mm-hmm.
Back on it now. So
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Okay. Let's change things up here a little bit. Have you developed any new skills or hobbies this year? How has that impacted your life?
Probably the newest hobby would be listening to books. Something I really didn't do a lot of. When I was doing Sandler training a decade and a half ago, I listened to their CDs that they provided and went through that.
Mhm.
But since then, it was kind of like no books or no real regular motivational inspiration learning. So, that's probably the newest hobby, if you will.
Yeah.
So,
How has that affected your life, and how have you applied it to your life?
well, I'd say the leadership books, anything from the Simon Sinek to John Maxwell to the dozens of other authors. Even the Garrett Gunderson's money book
Mm-hmm.
focus a lot on, hey, love the people you're working with, your teammates, your family, of course. Um, and, just focus on that. It seems to be the most major message I've been getting over the last couple months.
Hmm.
And it seems kind of weird. Like, okay, I got to keep love at the forefront, even with new people that I don't really know. And how do I do that? Well, I just maintain a level of interest to the degree I can, and not force anything as far as, like a personal conversation or what have you.
Hmm.
And more so the caring for their success, with our new sales guys here. We just embarked upon the 6-figure blueprint of how can we get them to earn $100,000 in their first year with us.
Hmm.
And it's added a whole new level of focus to what I'm able to consider outlining and preparing and guiding, so they can do that.
Hmm.
Turns out all you got to do is make 2 sales a week, averaging $15,000 per sale.
Yeah. It's not that difficult.
Boiled down to the logistics of it. But,
Mhm.
what's involved with that is, teaching them the sales process, how to communicate well, which, I may struggle with that myself, but when it gets down to a sales process, I'm pretty good at least explaining it as somebody more professional would. So
Okay. Well,
that's good.
explain to us that process a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, it starts with bonding and rapport. Almost every sales process you'll hear says, get to be comfortable with, have the person you're negotiating with be comfortable, and do that by matching and pacing and mirroring their communication style. If you were to get together with me and be all, hey, let's go, come on, let's move, I'd better respond with, all right, I'm ready to go, let's do it. But if you're going to quiet down on me, be gentle and calm and slow and nurturing, then I'll do the same thing, just so that we're communicating well.
Mhm.
Then the next step after that is to set the agenda for the conversation you're about to have regarding what their pain is, what they're hoping to accomplish, issues, challenges, frustrations, what their budget or investment level is, what the time, energy, effort, and resources and money is going to be required to resolve their pain, what they're hoping to accomplish, issues,
Mhm.
challenges,
Mhm.
frustrations, and then finish the conversation about what their decision-making process is, who besides yourselves will be involved in making this decision, what is your time frame, and if you're letting them know that's what you're going to talk about, you say, we may discover at the end of this conversation that, one, we might be a fit to work together, and that's great. But, even more so, we may discover that it might not be a fit, and it could turn into a no. Is that fair? And then you acknowledge that if it is a no, comfortable hearing it. And once you make the outline of that conversation, you can then go through a really good adult to adult conversation about what their concerns are, how much of a budget they're willing to invest, and in what time frame do they need it, and are they actually able to make the decision, or do we need to go get Uncle Louie, who's going to put half the money into this project.
Mhm.
So once you have that great conversation, determine that, hey, it makes sense to go ahead and look at all of our solutions, then you can present your solutions, sign the deal, and you have yourself a sale. Otherwise, you say, well, we discovered, hey, anytime during this conversation, if you get a sense that there might be a red flag or any reason why we shouldn't do business, call a timeout on me. We'll acknowledge it, see if it's something that, maybe we would be finished. Even a yellow flag comes up, call a timeout and we'll talk about it. All to determine that, hey, if it's any reason we shouldn't do business, then we shouldn't. Some will, some won't. So what? someone's waiting next. I'm just spitting out Sandler
Yeah.
language. So
That was so good. That was so good. I hope that that our viewers and listeners are getting, or I hope people are just listening to this, because this is really good stuff here, Vic.
well, it's copyrighted material, so probably
That's the whole point of it.
in trouble.
You know, when we listen to books or read books or study something, the point of it is to be shared. You know, and I think a lot of people don't want to share stuff because it's like, well, that's not my own stuff. Well, if you really, if an individual or a human being would really think back, it's like none of this stuff that I'm coming up with is mine. It's all recycled, you know, rehashed, recircled, regurgitated stuff that I've got to experience, I've got to witness, I got to learn everything from someone else. Now, what I have done, not by choice usually, but I interpret things a little bit differently, maybe. And I put my own spin on it. But for the most part, I don't think anyone really comes up with, like, you know, stuff. I mean, other than, like, we were just out, I think it was yesterday, Jana and I went out someplace, and there was a Winston Churchill picture or portrait that was on the wall. And where he would have gotten this from, I have no idea, but it says, he said, success walking from failure to failure with no loss. Success is walking from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. Now, I don't know where he would have heard that at before. And maybe he was laying in bed one night, and not that we don't come up with our own metaphors or our own little sayings and stuff like that. But I would say at least 70% of the stuff that we regurgitate is we heard something somewhere, whether we're saying it the way that it was written or we put our own spin on it. Point is that we heard it someplace else. So don't feel bad about regurgitating Chandler's sales system process, because that's what it was designed to do. What you read was a basic text. You're reading from a basic text. What that means is that it's made to be studied and it is made to be taught.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, it's good stuff. It's good that you've taken the time where so many people won't read that. There's a book. I know they got a book out. I know that there's that training, which took you how long? How many years?
Well, I bought a lifetime membership like in 2005
Mm-hmm.
it was $10,000 at the time. My wife reminded me this morning. She said, you can let them know that you yourself doubled your income in the first year once you started taking the course.
Mm-hmm.
However, I mean, that's all good news, but we had Tuesday morning classes for about 2.5 hours, and then lunch class on Tuesday for an hour, and then Friday workshops for about 4 hours. And I did that every week for 5 years, like without missing a single session.
Mm-hmm.
The Tuesday sessions were a repeated 8-week long course that just repeated over and over. It was offered to people that they could take just the 8-week course and be done.
Mm-hmm.
But I recognized that if I wanted to be at, half decent at any of this sales process, I needed to go.
Mm-hmm. More often.
Yeah. It took me 5 years to say, okay, I think I can decrease the amount of attendance I do.
Yeah.
I should go back just to brush up because what I'm doing now.
Yeah. Let me know. I'll go with you.
Yeah. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. And that's okay that you've taken that time to invest in yourself, because really, if you think about it, that's probably the most valuable, one of the most personal, valuable investments that you've probably ever made in yourself, and how valuable it is to so many other people that you get to share that knowledge with. So that's a win, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another reason why you should consider yourself one of the wealthiest people I know, is because of the amount of knowledge that you have and the amount of inspiration that you want to cast onto other people. You know what I mean? So that's kudos to you.
I'm glad you said it that way because, I want to.
Yeah.
Whether I've been successful yet will be determined.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amen.
No, all good stuff. So we're about 49 minutes into this. So before we move on to next year's goals, what advice or insight would you give your past self at the beginning of the year?
Well, I would say take cold showers every morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you still do that?
Well, I just started up. You know, I did it half-heartedly in our when we did the Fearless 44 the last time I was in it,
Mm-hmm.
and I just didn't get the point. I mean, I got some point like, well, okay, be uncomfortable, but I learned more about it more recently. I guess my son said something about this Wim Hof fella.
Mm-hmm.
He explained a little more about some of the supreme health benefits to it. So
Mhm.
I'm just starting that up again.
Good. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I know Jan and I have, and we've done them, man, I would say at least for the past 2 years. And it is definitely something I would not go without. And I am very disappointed when we go someplace else and the water doesn't get as cold as it does at home, because the cold water at home is literally, it hurts. But it seems like the colder that it is, the more beneficial that it is, whether it be for inflammation, my metabolism. You know what I mean? I can tell when I start to slack off on it. My metabolism tends to slow down. My energy level, especially in the mornings, if I'm like kind of like half-ass in the cold water. Do you know what I mean? And what could be half-ass to me might be extremely cold to you. But a few weeks ago, I went back to like no hot water, period, and for at least a good 2 minutes. But I've caught myself staying in longer, and then hitting those areas like under my arm here. If I can get cold water in there, and then on my lower back and let it run down, those areas tend to be the most beneficial to me, because that's, by the time it hits my head and gets down to my lower parts, it warms up whether you know it or not, especially if you're just taking a cold shower. But if you bring your knee up and let it, like, you know what I mean, like you're stretching
Right.
in the cold shower, it's much more beneficial that way too. So I'm trying to get as much benefit out of it as I possibly can, and instead of just like standing and letting it beat on my head or my chest, or turn around and let it hit my shoulders, I really try to be super intentional.
Yeah. Yeah. This Wim Hof fella, he said, take it at your own pace. Just feel it, do it.
Hmm.
If you need to start out easy, go ahead. I would find myself, I just do it one side and it has to be done.
Hmm.
Like now lately, I'm all right. I'm going to spin the whole way around if I can get it everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just try to control the breathing.
Yeah.
And that,
Pretend that you're trying to rinse the soap off. And
Yeah.
that's another, benefit to it too, is because if it's just like when you're doing dishes, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but you should always wash dishes with cold water, because if you're trying to rinse the soap off with hot water, it doesn't rinse very well, and there's always a film on it until you turn the cold water on, and then it rinses it thoroughly. Well, imagine what it's doing to your skin and your hair and everywhere else that soap might hide and not be rinsed off. Because let's face it, yes, some soaps are better than other soaps, but having those, your why, like the grease buildup or whatever in your hair and on your skin and stuff like that, a lot of that has to do with just poor rinsing. And if you're trying to rinse with hot water, your pores are getting clogged with gunk. And so that's another huge benefit of cold showers.
nice.
Yeah.
Bonus for the immune system building.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. There's so many things to list. The benefits of taking cold showers. Just, I know it's been a game changer for me, especially for inflammation, because I enjoy doing it the second time in the day when I take one is after I work out. It just,
Yeah.
it
Well, I
feels-
would emphasize looking into it. Just from what I've learned so far, that people have reversed cancers and immune system deficiencies and eliminated the need for doctors. And it's check out Wim Hof
No
and his
doubt.
cold therapy.
Nice.
It's all about that.
Okay. Winhof.
Wim,
Wim.
WIM
Hof.
HOF.
Okay.
He's known as the Iceman.
Okay. Never heard of him.
Yeah, he's started this new cult.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Okay. On that note, let's go into the following the new year that is so quickly, rapidly upon us here. So what are your goals or aspirations for the up and coming year, both professionally and personally?
Professionally, I want to be the best sales guider that I can be. I mean, we've got a lot of good people up here, Brian and Ben, and we've got Ken on the team, and a lot of the more veteran sales guys are pretty darn good at their sales process and would be able to teach a lot. So I'm just hoping to do the best I can with where I am going with this sales process training. Ultimately, my goal would be to have everybody in the sales team producing $100,000 for themselves or more for next year.
Love that.
Yeah. Personally, I could see getting back to a little more music recording and sharing of the visual guitar process that I put together videos for, helping guitar players understand music theory a little more for those who don't know much about it.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Cool. Well, I know that's been a lifelong passion of yours. You wrote a book.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
It's called The Visual Guitar Music Theory.
Okay.
And it comes with companion videos. You can read it for free because I'm giving it away at johnnystar.com if you want to go there.
Okay. And what does the book entail?
Well, it has graphics and descriptions of how all of music chords and like the guitar soloing that you do, they're all built from do, re, mi, and how to simply visualize that. Looking at the guitar looks pretty complicated, but just to simplify it, to say, look, if we play do, re, mi, the notes of do, re, mi all the way up and down the neck, you'll find that all the chords are built on. If you make a map out of that do, re, mi all the way up and down the neck, you skip a few notes along the way, so it makes an unusually shaped pattern, and we can describe how to play that pattern by visualizing parts of it and then seeing that your chords lay right on those same notes, and they also sound and are built like do, re, mi. If you play all the chords in one key, you will hear blah, 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 the do, re, mi, and then it shows you visually how you can be aware of that, and then some guided instructions on how to break it down and play that all the notes of do, re, mi up and down the neck with one simple little pattern.
Nice.
So that's about.
I love that. I actually looked at I don't know if I want to call it I read your book or I looked through your book and it did seem to be in pretty good layman's terms for someone to understand the notes on a guitar neck a lot easier. And like you said, it kind of helps you draw that map, that visual aid in your mind. So great job on articulating that. It's been a minute since I looked at it, but yeah, good job.
Well, it was designed for guitar players who have played bar chords and are familiar with playing guitar solos, but just don't have all the pieces together of how it ties together in music theory kind of terms.
Right on.
So yeah, I'm impressed that you made it into the book at all, because it could look like a lot of gibberish.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, no, that's good.
Cool.
All right. Well, we got to be nearing our 1 hour mark here. We got about one and a half minutes here left. Before we get off, why don't you leave us with a nugget or something that our listeners and viewers can take away and apply in their life today?
I would say love everybody that you run into as best you can, as often as you can. And don't think that it's anyone else's fault for where you are in your life, because you are where you are because of all the decisions you have made.
Amen. Right, wrong, or indifferent.
Yeah.
Great freaking episode. Great job, Vic. Good way to set the studio up twice today. You're the man, the myth, the legend, the man behind the scenes. John, thank you for everything that you have done here. You are an inspiration, and you have grown leaps and bounds since we started to work closer together. So kudos to you to want to continue to keep leveling yourself up. And thank you for everybody for tuning in and listening to us, and in hopes that that we've been able to inspire you in one way, shape, or form to want to level up your game. Don't forget to check us out on Spotify, Google, or Apple. And if there's any topics that you guys would love to hear or listen to, please post them in the comments. Until next time, we will see you guys. And what is it? Happy New Year to everyone out there. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Special thank you to Tyrus.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.